mastery. Here we go.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes, sir.
What is up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to the kickback. Right? It's a little different for us. Same intro, a little different on the intro though. The name. This is the kickback. We are your hosts, Nate,
John,
Dino, Mr. Dino in the house.
Yes, sir.
And tonight, boys, on the kickback, we are going to be talking everything UFC 287. We're about 24 hours removed now from the main card kicking off. Super pumped for that.
Yes, sir.
And I guess we should just start out with who we are, a little intro. First off, if you're watching, welcome to the MMA Underground YouTube page. So we typically run a podcast called the Knee on Belly Podcast, as you can see right here below. We put out new episodes every Monday, streaming on all platforms, and we would love if you would subscribe, give us a follow on those. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're there, we promise.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, we're everywhere.
Absolutely, at Knee on Belly Podcast and everything. But as I mentioned, we're extremely excited to be here, coming to you guys from the MMA Underground YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button below. Make sure you check out at the UG on all social media. And as I said at the beginning, boys, it's 287. It's time. Everybody's weighed in. Yes, Miami.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
and
it's
we're going to
electric.
I can't wait, man. And we're going to put a bow on it, give our final thoughts, all of our predictions on this massive, massive card. So please also get involved down in the chat. Feel free to chime in. Give us your thoughts. We're going to try to keep checking on those. John is going to do his best.
We got a little bit of a delay, so I'll read what I can and we'll do what we can, man.
Absolutely. So if you're watching, just get in the chat. Let us know at any time what you think. And I guess we can just kind of kick this thing off, boys. I feel like we almost off top have to discuss, right, the biggest news that kind of dropped this week, which was the UFC, or the UFC's parent company, should I say, Endeavor, purchasing the WWE and creating this massive merger between these two companies. So, John, why don't you go ahead and just kind of give us the overview and details of that?
All right. So Monday, the company who owns UFC, like you said, Endeavor, announced that they're acquiring the World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE. Along with acquiring WWE, Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel also announced that they would be combining both companies to form a new publicly listed company called NewCo, as that's the name for it as of right now.
Oh, that is the name. See, I didn't even know. I just saw the stock trading thing was going to be like TKO or something
it's
like
now,
that.
It's called NewCo for now. Who knows if that holds up.
Okay.
They're going to be, both companies together are going to be valued at over $21 billion, making them just ridiculously huge.
Yeah, that's nuts.
There were rumors of other companies being in on trying to obtain WWE, but ultimately Endeavor president Mark Shapiro got the deal done with the majority shareholder of WWE, which was Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
The transaction should be expected to be closed by the end of the year, which will see Endeavor own 51% stake in the new company, currently referred to as NewCo, and the existing WWE shareholders are going to be having 49%. Ari Emanuel will serve as the chief executive of it, and Shapiro will be named president and chief operating officer. McMahon will be an executive chairman. WWE chief executive Nick Khan will be the president of the wrestling business, and Dana White will have his same role. Yeah.
Off top, we got to talk about the Vince McMahon with the mustache, right? I mean,
Bro,
so many memes of him just wearing sombreros and stuff. It's just
he looks so different.
I mean, Rico's suave, right?
I haven't followed wrestling for a while, so when I seen him, I was like, "That's Vince."
Dude, here's the thing. Like, I don't like follow it. Like, I watched Mania this year. That's probably the first wrestling I've done. Well, I take that back. I did watch the Royal Rumble. For some reason, I always watch the Royal Rumble and Mania. Like, there's just something inside of me. I have to watch it every year.
30 competitors.
You gotta watch it. But like but I didn't even know that he was looking like that. So first off, shout out to Vince McMahon.
He got the eyebrows a little darkened too, because he just looked like a different guy.
Go for it, Vinny. Go for it. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, on the financial stuff because, obviously boring, right? Like, and I mean, I don't fully understand all that stuff anyways. And, but I do think there's no way that this just isn't an absolute home run for the UFC and WWE and obviously Endeavor. And I guess my hope is that all the employees and the athletes and all these companies are compensated for this bump. Because
benefiting from it.
Dude, like, wasn't the UFC purchased for like $3 billion, they said, and now it just sold for like technically $12 billion. Like, talk about getting a deal there. Like, Endeavor don't miss, baby. That's what that tells you right there.
Another interesting part is Khan had said that the WWE and UFC will hold separate negotiations for their linear TV rights.
Right.
But there could be an opportunity for them to combine streaming arrangements.
Okay.
The WWE still has a contract through NBC Universal Peacock till 2026, and the UFC is tied up with ESPN until 2025.
Hey, the free WWE Peacocks, if the UFC wants to absorb
please.
the free the Peacock, I'm all for that.
Recommended. Please do that.
But I know my like instant thought or reaction, and I kind of messaged the group chat about it was, I think first off, number one, this actually offers a pretty good avenue, maybe for some UFC guys and girls at the end of their careers to go and try something different to make a living. And two, I think this could be massive for the amateur wrestling scene. Like off top, that's exactly where my head went. You know, this super company could now be like the amateur wrestling version for like their NFL or NBA, right? You know, the most natural thing for wrestlers after college is to then go on and try to compete at the Olympics. But what if now they can sign for the WWE and UFC simultaneously? And I understand that you can't be a part-time MMA fighter or even a part-time professional wrestler. You have to respect those crafts individually for sure and go all in. But to have that option, it could be huge. I mean, think about a guy recently like Gable Steveson, right, who was kind of in between, had the option to go to both, ended up going to the UFC, but or WWE, but could have saved him a lot of headache if it was like, yeah, we're kind of a package deal here, you know? Yeah, so, and while I do think the prestige, obviously, of the Olympics will still be there, there's only a small amount of guys and girls that can actually go to the Olympics, right? So this could just be huge for Endeavor, and it's created just a fantastic option for men and women transitioning from amateur wrestling who still want to be competitive.
Yeah, and, you know, they've done work in the past, obviously, with Ronda going over, CM Punk coming over, Brock, you know, Kane. Like you've seen some things where they've been in good business together. So this just kind of makes sense. We do have some stuff in the chat going. Somebody said Vince is out here looking for Spider-Man news pics for his newspaper.
Dude, yes. That's so true.
Somebody else said, I have a feeling we'll see Logan Paul within the next few years with the big WWE deal. Big money there.
With the Prime, it does make sense. Well, let's talk about that, right? Because Dana did say today, like, hey, no cross-promoting, right? But it is I think an eventuality. Boy, is that a word?
I think it is.
I think it is. We're going to say it is.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think eventually there will be some form. I mean, it just has to, right? It's there. It's natural. It might take some time. But, like, let's just have some fun with it. Let's discuss maybe some potential crossovers between WWE and UFC athletes that maybe you guys would want to see. You know, I don't know that we'll see UFC fighters in full-blown pro wrestling matches for a while, but I think we'll start seeing UFC fighters sitting ringside at Raw and SmackDown in the lead-up. Like, imagine this week, right? Like, Monday Night Raw, Izzy sitting in the front row, or Pereira, or, you know, that would be huge, and why not? If it's sitting there, especially if these two companies can sync up, right, to where Raw, SmackDown, whatever, is in the same city as the pay-per-view. I mean,
and we've seen it work on
massive.
other levels with the AEW and Top Team thing, where you create the storyline, you kind of insert them, but nothing too serious. Like,
and again, I watched Mania this year, and like George Kittle sitting ringside had a little WrestleMania spot where he just hit somebody with a chair or something. I don't remember. It was with The Miz. It was with The Miz.
Yeah.
And so like Izzy could any of these fighters could easily work a spot like that. But Izzy did make it a point specifically, I felt like in his presser this week, to bring up this thing and like this merger, and he's all for it, and his eyes lit up. But so did every other fighter that talked about it. Like,
because I mean, you grow up watching it, man. Everybody's hit somebody with a fake chair or something. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we grew up watching random athletes come into WCW, WWE.
Absolutely.
You know, Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone,
Mike Tyson.
Even Floyd.
Right.
So.
And I think Izzy,
it was crazy.
Dude, when he knocked out the Big Show.
He cracked him with the
nuts.
nuts.
Hit him for real.
Hit
him with the nuts.
I remember that. I think Izzy and Masvidal could be guys who would be phenomenal in a cross promotion, obviously. But if we do eventually see some of that, which, like I said, I think we will, who are maybe 3 or 4 guys from the UFC, either one of you guys can start, that you would see like to see work in a spot in the WWE.
Ahead, bro. This is the list I have for you.
See, I don't have many, but like
John,
I would say
I did. To be fair, I said I know. I did tell them I was going to ask this, and John said his list got really long, really fast.
Yeah, I had
Can't
to stop.
confirm.
Yeah,
Who you got, Dino? Who you got?
Derek Lewis, man.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
he's
he
on
could
my
do,
list.
Yeah,
man.
I feel like he could do like behind the scenes stuff with like
Makes
Farouk.
so much sense.
Yeah.
Like him and Farouk backstage.
Could make so much sense. Absolutely.
Colby Covington, bro.
Yeah.
There is an angle
Colby.
there.
Yeah, I had Colby. And then hold on, let me check it out real quick because he has a list.
Yeah,
He got me over here
who you got?
You
Go
do
through
have like the Conor McGregors.
See, and he's one, like, my prediction is there's
Yeah, I
no
had
way Conor
Yeah.
McGregor isn't involved in next year's Mania in some capacity. Like, there's too many options there, right?
Yeah. And coming from an old like Raw era, like Attitude era nerd, like we were watching all the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking about mic skills. I'm thinking about how it can translate if they're doing something. So
Dude, absolutely.
Patty Pimblett, easy.
Facts.
Easy sell.
Facts.
Michael Chandler, he already does promos in his post-fight.
With a tear in my eye.
And he has that build, that Kurt Angle build
Sure.
or whatever. Even that's a storyline in itself.
Yeah.
Sean Strickland.
Yeah.
Easy heel immediately.
I don't know.
I don't know if he'll last, but Chris Barnett
Yeah, he's
doing
funny.
flips.
Oh, yeah,
he's funny.
yeah,
He's good on the mic.
And like a sneaky athletic guy like that. Yeah, those guys do work.
Another one, obviously Kevin Holland. Mike skills are there.
Yeah.
Henry Cejudo's cringe.
Yeah.
He's got it easy. A couple of ones I thought were interesting. Nate Landwehr.
Yeah,
That dude.
Look at these biceps.
Yeah, that dude he's ready. Angela Hill. I think
Okay.
she's got a personality. She kind of fits in with the build of what they're doing over there. Paul Craig.
Dude, he had a pro wrestling match recently,
Paul
and it was
Craig.
like,
Really?
Yeah, dude, over in like Scotland or something where he's from. Yeah, and it was like mad decent. Like, go to YouTube, look that up.
I'm gonna have to check that
It was
out.
like really decent, bro.
Michelle Watterson. I think
Yeah.
how she, when you see her videos where she almost kicks people in the face, that works
see
out
that,
perfect
for sure.
Davey Grant.
Wavy Davy, our
My
boy.
last two like random ones: Carla Esparza and Brian Barberina.
Okay,
I think
I
those are
actually
just
had
people.
like Tai Tuivasa too.
Yeah.
Just because,
Man.
bro, I could see
So
him.
many, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who just have that type of personality or have that type of skill. I think would translate.
Yeah, and another thing I did find interesting was DC interviewed Brock last week for Mania as the news was being broke. Literally, I think that Sunday, and he said. To DC, he was like, "Does this mean we can finally fight?" And obviously, DC shut it down immediately. He was like, "No, Brock, I'm retired." But dude, that kind of tells me that Brock Lesnar maybe, just maybe, for the right fight, would be willing to come back to the UFC for one more. And like where he's at in the WWE, he's not a champion. He probably won't be really anytime soon. Another one, because you guys went all UFC to WWE. Another one, little dark horse. And I know this is going back, a little history lesson, but how about the original bro, Matt Riddle?
Yeah, I have him
They
on
look
my
to
list
step
of,
back into
of
MMA.
potential of the other way.
Dude, Riddle was a dog, and people
Yeah.
forget, but in the words of Stephen A. Smith, he just couldn't get off the weed, man.
And then now it's not even a thing for the UFC.
And it's not a thing now. Like, yeah, he could come back, but like, I think if it wasn't for his, like, no, because I think he had like 2 suspensions for it in like 1 year, and they were just like, yeah, see you, dude. But like, would have left without his wins being overturned with like a 5-fight win streak or something. Like, Matt Riddle was legit, man.
We got a sweet comment here saying, "Give Big Ben Roth a cape and he'll turn a heel right away."
Dude, Big Ben Rothwell,
Yeah.
absolutely. With that laugh. I love it.
Somebody said Nate Diaz as well.
Nate Diaz makes a ton of sense. Like, they're and like,
Just slapping people.
man, yeah.
That could
flipping
be his
them
whole
off.
gig. Just come
Yeah.
down there and slap folks.
Man, and not to go like too far down the wormhole as well, but like think about like a Francis right now, like if he were still involved, like again, another guy that could play perfectly into that world over there. So
Another person who might have some crossover who's done fights is Bobby Lashley too.
yeah, done some MMA fights as well. Yeah, and
So-
there is some guys over there that like I know I've just heard that like train and stuff like that. So you never know, but like you do have to respect those as individual crafts.
Yeah.
Like it would be so hard to go back and forth,
Yeah.
but working a spot here and there is not that difficult.
And just off of pure grit, Cody Rhodes, when you see what he did to himself in that cage match with his chest and stuff,
tore his pec.
and to keep going through that, I mean, he could probably fight through an armbar. That's
Yeah,
all
I seen
I'm
the
saying.
picture. I was
Yeah.
like, bruh.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, I seen that. I seen that.
One more thing, I didn't have this in my notes. I literally just saw it though. As I before we get into UFC 287, I saw that Dana, the UFC, announced that they are going back to Canada, Vancouver, June 22nd. Was that right for
I have it.
289 UFC 289? But dude, first off, that's like Canada cards are like UK cards. Where
Yeah.
the crowd
the
is
crowd
like
is nuts.
80% of why you buy, right? Like,
I was thrown off by the
Bonkers.
fight they announced with it though.
what would they announce?
Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena 3. I thought was it Aldina or
Rena Aldana?
She was. I thought that's what they've been rumoring, and we even talked about it.
You're breaking
about a
news
month
to
or
me.
so
I didn't
ago.
even see that. I've been getting ready for this. I didn't even see that.
So they're running that back for a third.
That's interesting. I mean,
They haven't.
I guess I kind of thought Raquel Pennington.
Yeah,
That was kind of who I was thinking. Like naturally, should have got it, but
or maybe Amanda's on her way out, and this is the one fight she wanted, or something. I mean, we just don't know what's going on with her. So
could be. Yeah, that's interesting. But dude, first off, I love Vancouver. It's the only Canadian city I've ever been to, but it is the best. I know. I also know that. Somebody told me when I was in Vancouver. So yeah, that was really cool because I know that like a lot of Canadian fans have been waiting for that as well. Boys, we've got to get into UFC 287 because there's a lot to talk about. So tomorrow night, April 8th, Miami, Florida. And let us just start here with the featured prelim. The featured prelim. I just did it again.
That's another one.
The featured prelim bout. There we go. Between number 15, Kelvin Gastelum versus number 14, Chris Curtis. Kelvin Gastelum, boys, weighing in at 185 today. Chris Curtis at 186. Were you going to say something?
you just got shouted out in the chat by your boy Cody.
Yeah.
Nate in the squad. We out you.
Cody making this. Let's give Cody some love off top.
My man.
Wouldn't happen without him today. Appreciate that. Boys, Kevin Gastelum returns after 595 days on the sidelines. But you know what? And this, I said it like this week on our podcast was, I feel like for a guy who's in Kelvin's situation, the time off can't be a bad thing, right? It was, and if anything, it would have been a good reason for him to like kind of step back and reassess. He's currently on a 2-fight losing streak in his career, and he's won just 1 fight in his last 6. And he isn't taking an easy tune-up fight here either in this return, because in the time that he's been off, Chris Curtis has landed in the UFC middleweight division, and he has been on a really good run. He's 4-1 in his 5 UFC fights, coming in off that TKO finish over Joaquin Buckley last December.
That's a big win.
Yeah, man. And
Buckley's tough.
very tough. But like I said, this is a tough fight for Gastelum, who's been out for a while, to be facing one of the more active guys in the division while he's been off, right? So what are your guys' thoughts on this matchup as we're, like I said, just about 24 hours. Actually, this fight will probably be happening in literally 24 hours from now. So
yeah, man, I'm excited, man. I think Chris Curtis deserves a fight like this. Obviously he had the setback with the Hermanson fight. Yeah. But this is a chance for him to put another name on his list, and just a guy who's always game.
And like the Hermanson fight was just like kind of a weird one for him anyways, like which like kind of blew us away because we thought Hermanson was just going to take him down, and then he just goes out and like kind of pieces him up a little bit. But it was a lot of frustration as well from him in that one. But like other than that fight, just kind of been flawless so far. His Chris Curtis.
And he's just something that's hard to deal with. He doesn't go away. Cardio stays there. He stays in people's face. And I think for Kelvin, he can't start slow. If you start slow against Chris Curtis, there's a good chance you're going to put yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he throws hard too, man. And then Kelvin come off of that weird injury. Was it like something with his tooth, or I can't remember exactly what it was. When he was last supposed to fight.
What was it?
His lip or something?
I think so.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So, and he did the change to Cejudo's camp like we talked about on the pod too. So who knows what that does for Gastelum? Does he get back to wrestling heavy? Right. Is there something new in his arsenal? So it's interesting.
It is very interesting. Dino, who you like here, bro? Who you taking?
Man, it's tough because you guys were just telling me that Curtis, man, he's running through stuff and he's got these hands, but Gastelum's a vet, man. The time off might have been needed, and then he's with Cejudo, so you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the guy that's on the streak, though, man. I'm gonna go with Curtis, man.
Gonna go with Curtis.
Go with Curtis. Even though I'm excited for Gastelum, man, I'm gonna go with Curtis.
I'm taking Gastelum. I like Gastelum. I just I think he's the right guy to kind of walk through the fire, especially early on in this fight. Like I think he's gonna have to. Plus the Cejudo bump, baby. Like I believe in the Cejudo bump, man. I mean, he's been out in Arizona with him, and there's just no doubt that when people go out and train with Henry Cejudo, we've seen it time and time again, they get better. And like I saw something where Henry was talking about like some of the like little technical things that Kelvin's gotten better with, and I'm like, man, I can kind of see some of that making sense in this Chris Curtis fight. Right. And Chris Curtis isn't the biggest middleweight, where Kelvin's always the smallest, middleweight. That was another thing that Cejudo brought up, so I like that for him as well. I am taking Gastelum, man. I like the return. I like this.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a dog fight.
I'm going with Curtis on this, but because not only is this going to be a dog fight, but Kelvin's been through like 5 dog fights in a row.
Yeah.
Where he's just getting in really, really tough fights with the best guys.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to the camp that they have with Curtis, having Sean Strickland there, having Marvin Vettori there. You're getting a lot of work.
Dude, there's a lot of 85ers there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're doing it with the best guys.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bump for that as well.
Sure.
So I like Curtis, but also just being active, man. It's like I said, if you start slow against Chris Curtis, it could be
That's
tough.
what I said. But I do think like that fires. If like I said, I think he's the right guy to kind of get through that early on, because Gastelum is so durable. But
yeah, at his best, I would take Kelvin over a lot of people in the division. But you just don't know what you're gonna get. So
yeah, like I said, it is crazy. Like obviously, probably the least active going against probably one of the more active. So. It's going to be a good fight, though. I'm excited. And that's a great fight. Like that's what I told you guys. Like, probably could have been on the main card if it wasn't for this young guy that we're about to get to in this first fight. But like I said earlier in the week, like, hey, if you're not buying this pay-per-view, this is an amazing free fight that you're going to get to watch, because honestly, it could probably be like a main event on a fight night, really, like low-key. So I think it's a great matchup. Before we get to this main card, though, I feel like I didn't properly introduce Dino. I feel really bad about that. So I just kind of swept that under the rug. So I feel like we got to stop real quick, because our boy Dino Swoke sitting here. Like, we usually have another third. Brandon couldn't be here tonight. And Dino, in the WWE world, he's like our Undertaker. You know, the bells hit and he just comes. He's never far away. He's always with us, watches the fights with us. He's done a lot of episodes with us. He's going to keep being around. But we appreciate you being here. Former amateur bantamweight champion as well. What was your record?
8-3.
8-3. What was your kickboxing record?
With those 3-0.
Yep. So definitely been through some wars. Our boy Dino has.
Did you have like 6 fights? Is like your first 6 fights were in a year or 2 years, something like that?
Yeah, I know
you was fighting every couple months for a minute.
I was just taking anything.
I feel like every time you're on, we ask you, but are you closing the door on the MMA career?
Not at all. Man.
I know that's always the answer, but I just feel like I had to ask. I feel like
not at all. It's just I got family life right now.
I get it.
But it's always in the back of the mind, you know?
Absolutely. Well, boys, let's get into the main card. Our first fight on the pay-per-view, Raul Rosas Jr. weighs in at 135 pounds versus Christian Rodriguez, who misses weight, came in at 137, missed by 1 pound. He weighed in at 137.5 on his first attempt. Went back, tried it. I think they gave him like an hour and a half. Came back, only shaved off the half a pound. So he decided to forfeit the 20% to Raul Rosas Jr. And man, this does put a bit of a cloud over what was going to be a huge opportunity, or still is. I mean, it's still a great opportunity, but does put a bit of a cloud over this massive opportunity for Rodriguez, because he's obviously in this spot because of who he's facing, right, and his opponent. And what a big spot this also is for an 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. I mean, to be kicking off the main card of a pay-per-view tells me that at least promotionally, right, he's got a lot of backing, a lot of major backing. I know a lot of people kind of taking some issue with some of the things that he has to say this week, and stuff that he's kind of said in the past. But I mean, I also don't know what more you kind of expect
He's a teenager.
from an 18-year-old who's getting paid a lot of money to fight people, and then you're giving him a microphone and a platform to speak on. Like,
18-year-old me would have said way worse things.
Thank you, because I'm like, what would I have said?
I'm telling you,
I'd have been plugging mixtapes and like
start roasting people in the crowd and other fighters. Like, it would have went bad.
But man, every time I feel like we talk about Rosas on our podcast, I always feel so weird talking about him, because I feel like, and I'm talking about him as a fighter, because I always feel like I come off like I don't like him.
Yeah.
And I hate that. And it's because it's definitely not that. It's just, I think as a fan, I'm just not quite there yet with it. You know what I mean?
No, I feel that.
I mean, like what he's accomplished in 18 short years of his life is phenomenal.
Right.
And like, I honestly think, he is the first of what is going to probably eventually be many Raul Rosas Juniors. Like, I think this is the future. You know, he's
breed.
Yeah, man. Like because all these young guys are coming up. Like, we see it in our gym.
Right.
I mean, how many like 16, 17, 18-year-old dogs do we have? And like, you know, look like somebody like Sammy the Bull. Shout out to Sammy the Bull. Sam Akonda, who's getting a shout out right now.
Yeah, got to.
This kid comes in at 16, you know, or whatever, and he's just in like 2 years they're dogs, man. So he's definitely a trailblazer.
Well, and you have like Frank Mir's daughter.
Why did you just have to put it on blast that he choked me out?
I mean, they need to know how serious the talent is at 16.
Literally, the only person that ever choked me unconscious was a 16-year-old kid who's just a savage.
But you have Frank Mir's daughter too, who has a sponsorship through the UFC.
Right.
That could be an easy kind of feed into you know a similar situation. But I think it gets tough because you don't see that. We've never seen somebody 18.
Sure.
We've seen people like young or with a young career per se, less fights.
Right.
But we just haven't seen somebody who, you know, just went to prom come out here and fight on a pay-per-view.
Right.
You know?
God, he has like homework, like actually. And I mean, it is fun. It is intriguing. But like, I guess for me, and this is like kind of where I'm at with it, is like, I just understand it's going to take a while. Right. Like with this young dude, like, hey, he may go on to challenge John Jones's youngest UFC champion ever at 23 years old. I mean, he's 18. There's no reason why he can't. But again, we're just a long way off. As we sit here today, that seems so far away.
And I think that's why it's hard when he says, I'm going to be the champion. I'm here to beat everybody. It's like, we know the road it takes to get there.
Dude,
so.
100%. And that's why, like, I feel like, I know it's not that I'm like hating on this kid who's 18 years old and killing it. It's just, I'm just like, kind of like, yeah, okay. And I think that maybe is where some fans are now. I've seen some pretty egregious stuff at the same time where people are like, dude, chill out. Like, this is a little much. But what do you guys think overall on Raul Rosas?
I think he has all the potential. It's just with him saying the stuff that he says, I hope that there's people who are also telling him what we're saying as far as like, you know, definitely keep building your brain because this is the stuff that's going to make people tune in. Yeah. But it is a long road. Yeah. But on the whole thing of like not being sure yet, we wait for the other shoe to drop on everybody. Sure. We didn't believe in, I mean, you believed in, but I didn't like believe in like a Conor until the Aldo fight. Yeah. You don't believe in Hamzat until the Burns fight. Like there's these levels that you kind of have to get through before people fully buy in. He just hasn't got to that quite yet, but he's on his way.
No, I agree 100%. What do you think, Dino?
I like the kid, man. Yeah, I like the little dude, man. I believe in him. Yeah. I want him to get the dub, but he's in the murder's row, bro. 135.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. It's crazy. It's just crazy.
And then he was saying he's gonna be the champ. Hey, that's the mindset you gotta have when you're fighting, you know. So yeah, I believe in.
He's
the
a really
dude,
good grappler. I just like to see.
It's a long road,
right? And that's why, like, kind of picking final thoughts on this fight. Like, that's why I do like him to get it done here. You know, not just for the weight issues now that we know with Rodriguez, but also in Rodriguez's last loss, I think he got taken down like 6 times and was controlled for like most of that fight. So, and obviously, like John said, or you just said too, we know what his grappling is. It's pretty next level, especially at 18 years old. So I think he can get it done here. I mean, I think Rodriguez, you know, has a shot, especially on the feet. You know, that's kind of like where Raul Rosas is. Like, the question mark's a bit on the feet, right? So, but as long as he can get to that takedown, I think he can finish it here for sure.
And it'll be a huge moment for him. I mean, we'll have to see how the rest of the card goes, but for what it's coming up on, you just never know.
No, I agree 100%. Next fight, boys, moving down this card, we're getting through it. Kevin Holland coming in at 170.5 versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, who weighed in at 171 pounds. Kevin Holland coming into this fight on back-to-back losses against Khamzat Chimaev and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, while Santiago Ponzinibbio comes in off a comeback, absolute war comeback over Alex Morono last December. And despite Holland sending a DM to Ponzinibbio midweek asking if they could do the fight at 185 pounds, then go eat some steak, he did make weight. And dude, I just think that's Kevin Holland, right? Like that. That's like, this is Kevin Holland doing like Kevin Holland things. Maybe just trying to get Ponzinibbio to think that he was going to miss weight. But what Kevin Holland fight week wouldn't be complete without some mind games, a retirement announcement? Yeah, him stopping criminal activity. Like this is what he does. I mean, it's a staple of his now, and that's why we love him. That's why he's must see. He really is.
Yeah, I think first you get to know him for like the stuff at the Apex where you could hear him talking to people, and that clip kind of went real viral with the whole Big Mouth nickname. And then right after that, as he started to build up, it was, you know, talking to Habib on the sideline, asking him to help him wrestle in mid-fight. And It's just he's kind of built up this kind of. That's why I said he'd be perfect for WWE if it came around to it, because he just does a really good job of capitalizing on situations like that.
Who do you guys like in this fight?
Ooh, it's a nice one, man.
This is a nice one. This is gonna be a war. Stand up. I think it's stand up.
It's gonna be a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Holland, man. I'm gonna go with Holland.
Yeah, I like Holland as well, because Ponzinibbio gets hurt in his fights and kind of battles back, and Holland does a really good job once he finds his distance and that those punches start landing. He does a really good job of staying there and just getting people on the end of those punches,
putting the pressure on.
And he has a good gas tank too. So
I said this week, these are two guys I always get wrong. Like I can never figure these guys out, and I mean, I think they're gonna stand in the middle and they're going to throw, and one of them's going to catch the other. But I do think I like Holland. The distance, I think that reach is just so tough.
Can you pick Ponzinibbio to help my verdict, though? So I don't want you to get it wrong. So I need you to switch over to Ponzinibbio.
Help the verdict league. There was an interesting moment caught this week between Kevin Holland and Jorge Masvidal where they did exchange some words. It got brought up at the pre-fight scrum. Dana just quickly shut it down. Was not having it. And just basically said, like, they're not fighting, so next question. And while on one hand I see why he did it, because it's not totally fair to the other guy, and you don't want to, I'm sure, like, it's kind of scary for the UFC in the back when two guys, and then, like, you don't want it to escalate, but man, at the same time, why not just let it rock, right? Like,
well, you don't want to take eyes from your co-main,
right? And I know
Masvidal's a huge sell for this card, so,
but at the same time, that's the kind of stuff that gave us the Conor, who the fuck is that guy, right? Or even the intense stare down, and then kind of some of the words between Izzy and Pereira at UFC 276 presser when they weren't fighting each other. It was, the Cannoneer, and they had that intense thing where they, like, locked eyes at the presser, and, like, dude, they've used that for the promo and the build up to these fights. So, but that kind of stuff can set up and sell the next fight. And I think too, if the fighters themselves are willing to do it, like if Masvidal and Holland are willing to take their attention off their opponent, like, hey, dude, just kind of let it go at it, like, let them have at it, kind of thing. To some, you kind of got to cap it at some point. I get that.
Well, maybe they're looking at the personalities of the two people who would start.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't want, and I get it from that side. Like, you don't want these guys all.
Holland won't shut up, and Masvidal will try to three-piece into soda.
And you're in his hometown, he might be a little comfortable.
Yeah, that's true too. But man, these are two guys not only in the same division, welterweight division, but if Masvidal were to lose Saturday night, right, would a fight between him and Kevin Holland, whether Holland wins or loses, not make a ton of sense?
It makes sense,
dude. I'd
like to see that.
I'm saying, in the words of Uncle Joey Diaz, let him plant the seed.
Right.
That's the seed. That's the seed.
Kill Habib.
Yeah, kill Habib. Dude, that's a clip right there.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to laugh. But yeah, I don't know. That was just kind of something that came up fight week, and I thought, like, man, I don't think with a Masvidal win, which we'll get to the Masvidal fight in a minute, but dude, with a loss, like, Kevin Holland, whether he wins or loses, like, that fight would be fun. Him versus Masvidal, and then, like, two guys that kind of, like, especially if Masvidal were then to go on a longer losing streak, if Holland were to lose this weekend, like, two guys on the streak, like, just would make a ton of sense anyways. So I don't know. Next fight though, boys, number 6, Rob Font, weighing in at 135 pounds, championship weight for the contender, versus number 12, Adrian Yanez, coming in at 135 and a half. Boys, Rob Font coming into this fight off back-to-back losses for the first time in his career. Now, you do have to consider those losses are to Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. So, take that for what it is. And before that, he was on a 4-fight win streak. Adrian Yanez coming in as one of the brightest, brightest young stars in the bantamweight division. Currently a perfect 5-0 in the UFC, 6-0 if you want to count his Contender Series fight. And I feel like all fight week, these two have had a ton of mutual and healthy respect for each other, acknowledging the dangers that both possess at the presser. But I think most importantly, they both understand what's at stake here, right? Like, Yanez knows this is a test. Like, this is a big test in his
huge
career.
Name.
Oh, dude, like the biggest. Like, he hasn't fought anybody on this level yet. And then Font is trying to hold on to this spot, right? Coming off these back-to-back losses, and he said, like, I can't allow this guy to make a name off me, But yeah, your guys' thought on this, because I thought
Rob Font's coach and the Embeddeds had it right. They have to defend their number.
Yeah.
If Adrian Yanez gets this now in a stacked division, you're falling behind even more, 3 in a row.
Agreed.
Like, you put yourself in a really tough spot, and if you're Yanez, you have I mean, there is pressure of winning this fight, but you're also in like a, hey man, if I pull this off, I'm in a position that people probably didn't see me in for a couple years.
Right.
And he got the rub from Izzy. I don't know if you've seen in some of the questions he got, but Izzy sees him as a future champion in the division. So he's definitely got eyes on him, and I think this is a really huge opportunity for him. And his boxing is just so nice. The idea of their boxing against each other is going to be so crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about Giannis as a wrestler until you see the cauliflower in his ear. So he has some type of...
It's got to be something in there.
There's some wrestling and grappling in there. He just never had to use it because his striking is just so nasty.
Yeah, he is good. What do you think, Dino?
Man, I'm excited for this one. Like, it's this one and the last two. Like, bro, it's hard to not be excited for these fights, bro.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Who you taking?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Like I feel like I say that every time, but bro, this is for real a tough one. It could go either way, man.
Making you pick.
I gotta go with the young guy, man. Going with Giannis.
Giannis.
Yeah, gotta go with the young guy, man.
See, I'm trying to sneak one. This is my sneaky play. I'm sticking with Font. I picked Font. I'm riding with him. I do think Giannis is not just a future title contender, but probably a future champion. But I just think pace and pressure. That's got to be the key here for Rob Font. Also fighting behind his jab and stuff. And then just leading on that veteran mentality in the later rounds.
Bro.
Oh, it's crazy, man.
Oh, my goodness. His jab is beautiful.
So good. But yeah, just leaning on that veteranship, in the later rounds when, by that point I'm expecting this fight is going to be just all out war. This has fight of the night written all over it to me.
100%.
Dude, and I said on Monday, like on our show on Monday, I think this is one this has the potential, I'll say, to be one we're talking about at the end of the year for fight of the year. I mean, this is like crazy. Like this matchup is insane. Just has so much potential.
And if one of them can find a way to dominate this fight, you're looking at a performance of the year because these guys don't have boring fights.
No.
And when they get beat, I mean, we haven't seen it from Giannis yet, but for Rob, it takes a special type of guy. I'm sticking with the A-Train, man. Adrian Giannis, I've been on him since his first couple fights in. That Torrey Kelly fight where he just decimated him. Like, I just feel like he's so violent. And like I said, he has, this is a huge opportunity for him in Miami on the main card. Like, this is a big moment for him, so he has a chance.
I really like the Costa fight for Giannis because, like, he kind of had to come back a little bit in that fight, right? Like, he's down in the first round, and that showed a lot to me, like, right there. But one thing about this, kind of getting back to what Dino said earlier about, like, Rosas Jr. being in the bantamweight division, is I said on our pod episode as well earlier this week that, to me, this fight really showcases how tough the UFC bantamweight division is and why I think it's the best division in the UFC. Because imagine being Rob Font and you're on a 2-fight losing streak for the first time in your career and you're trying to reach back and fight the number 12 ranked guy to get back in the win column. And the number 12 ranked guy is Adrian Giannis. Like, dude, there's just nowhere to hide in this bantamweight division. It is just unreal.
Murderer's row.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy how good this division is. And like I said, like, I mean, imagine like any other division where, you have like a 5-6 ranked guy and they're like, usually that's kind of the move, like go back and fight him. But like in this division, it's like, oh yeah, here's this young killer ranked number 12. Like, how about it? So credit to Rob Font for taking it, too, man. I mean, it's a big test.
Giannis with them leg kicks too, man. He just has so many tools.
crisp.
The chat's heavy on Giannis right here. They got him, they got Giannis. A couple people got him by TKO.
Oh, everybody's making me feel bad now.
Wise folks, man.
TKO.
But I just think it's what have
That's
you done
the smartest
lately?
pick, probably.
Lately Giannis has been running through people, and Rob Font's had some tough fights, granted against Cheeto and Aldo, but you kind of don't remember that. You kind of just remember him kind of looking.
And he missed weight in that last one. Like something just seemed. I think he even said that this week in the pre-fight thing. He was just kind of like, he just stuff was going on, personal stuff. He just couldn't really get. He was just kind of trying to get to the next fight. I think was kind of more the quote. Because that just, especially the Cheeto, like missing weight. That's not Rob Font, man. You know what I mean? Like,
I seen in the embeddeds he was kind of hyped to be back in Florida because I guess he lived in Tampa for like 10 years or so. So it's not going to be foreign to be there for him. But
absolutely. Here we are, boys. Co-main event number 5. Gilbert Durinho Burns, championship weight, coming in at 170 pounds versus number 11, Jorge Masvidal, 171 pounds for him. Huge fight here in the middle welterweight division, I mean.
Oh, my goodness, man.
Yeah, and dude, one thing that I've loved this fight week, I think me and John talked about this, is that both guys are talking like they want to go out and like make a statement.
Yeah, get them out of there.
And try to sneak their name in that title picture, like both making it a point to say, hey, nothing's official yet between Leon and Colby. And despite Dana White, saying Colby Covington is next, both guys acknowledging, like I said, where's the contract, right? Although, like I said, Dana quadrupling down. Burns did acknowledge, though, that with a win, he would probably fight again or have to fight again, and there'd be a big likelihood of that. But somehow, boys, as we sit here on the eve of this fight, despite having 3 consecutive losses on his record, I feel like if Jorge Masvidal wins this fight, his next fight's going to be for a title.
Definitely.
The storyline is just too perfect.
Like, how did we
There's
get
a
here?
story behind it.
Like, how did we get here?
And ironically, it's a Rocky movie storyline.
Yeah.
You had this little run-in, things kind of, you had to go away from each
Yeah.
other, kind of comes back full circle.
And that's regardless of who's
Right.
holding the title.
That's true, too.
That, I mean, it could be Leon, it could be Colby, whoever wins that fight. If it's next, like, dude, yeah, it makes so much sense. And for the record, like, I'm not saying he will be Leon's next fight. I feel like that's pretty much gone, done, dusted. But I do think, like I said, a title shot for Masvidal, as we sit here right now, 24 hour, like, I feel like that's what's going to happen if he wins.
Definitely if he gets the dub.
Yeah, I've been so, like, watching the embeddeds, man. Burns with the fro and the overalls on,
My man.
favorite character in UFC, dude. Like, if we were playing the game and I could put that skin on him, that's how I would fight with him.
Dude, if I was going to create a fighter in WWE, that's probably what the overalls.
Bro, I'm digging Burns with the hair, bro.
And he had the fro last time, and he ran through Neil Magny.
I'm digging Burns with the fro.
That's true. Who you taking, Dino?
And this is just like every last one, bro. It's a
sign
tough
of a
one.
good card, man.
But I'm conflicted, man, because Gilbert's a dog, man. He has a debatable with Khamzat. I feel like he beat him, man.
But here's what I said, and because I did pick Burns, but I did say this, and as this week's going on, like, man, there's something in me that tells me Masvidal's going to pull this thing out. I don't know why, but I said this, like, we know, like, Gilbert Burns isn't, like, the greatest wrestler. I mean, he's a good wrestler, but he's not, like, Usman, Covington level.
Right.
Masvidal trains with nothing but wrestlers, right?
Nickel.
And Bo Nickel, AJ Ferrari, and he has, like, really good takedown defense. I think it's like 72, 75%. Like, and that's what I asked John and Brandon this week, and I'll put it to you, Dean. I was like, do you not see a world where, like, he goes out there, defends every takedown, makes this a stand-up fight with Burns, and knocks him out?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Burns is chinny, kind of, bro.
You look at
he got dropped with a jab, man.
But he also dropped Usman.
He did, bro.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And Khamzat, he was dropping
It's
him.
hard.
Yeah.
That's why it's so
such a
hard.
great
I'm
fight.
conflicted, man, because like, I want Masvidal to win, but I feel like Burns might get it, man.
It's mixed in the chat right now. We got some Masvidal. We got a couple Burns.
It's a tight one, man.
I'm like sitting here wanting to. I've like talked myself in almost all week to changing to Masvidal because I just feel like, man, there is a lot of state, like, in the Miami thing. Like, I keep thinking about that too.
It's pressure,
like,
man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because it's like, you know, there's definitely the case where, like, being in Miami is huge, and, like, dude, he's been like I saw today he, like, literally stopped traffic in the middle of Miami or something, like people getting out of their cars and stuff.
Dude, on the embeddeds, he just went out to, like, a strip where people were, like, doing wheelies on dirt bikes,
Just
and
walking
stuff,
through
like,
there like, Colby, you know, out here.
But then you've got people like Derek Lewis, right, who have been like, dude, that was like a big distraction. I never want to fight in Texas.
Well, he said
or
he's got
Houston
blinders
again.
on. He doesn't want to see his friends and family in the crowd. We also didn't talk about him mentioning possibly retiring if he loses.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Was it, who said it? Somebody said it. Was it Gilbert? Somebody said it this week, but they were like, it was Gilbert, I think. He was like, yeah, he signed a 7-fight contract. He was like, so if he signed a 7-fight contract, it was massive, and there's no way he's walking away from it.
And that's another reason why he could be in a situation to get the title with the win, because he's the 3rd, 4th highest paid that we know of. So
I just think a guy like him, and like I've said it, and I'll still say it, is I think he is in the welterweight division, he's the biggest pay-per-view star. To me, he is. I think he is. Yeah. I think the numbers kind of prove that as well.
People love the dude.
Yeah,
man.
so I think win, lose, draw, whatever, like, there's always stuff. Like I said, he could lose this fight. His next fight could be against Kevin Holland, and we're all buying this.
Watching
Yeah, like, we're all
checking that out.
Absolutely, because that's just who he is, and that's what he does. So I think I'm going to stick with Gilbert, though. I think I'm going to stick with Gilbert.
Me too. I got Gilbert, but I want Masvidal to win, bro, for the storyline.
And I feel like, though, there, as much as there's a world where he could just, like, throw a knee or something, and Gilbert not being as great of a wrestler gets desperate maybe because the stand-up isn't going his way. I also see a world to where if Gilbert can get his hands on him, he can control him as much as he wants.
Sure.
And he doesn't have to get a takedown to get a sub. He could jump on his back. We've seen people utilize that. You could see a scramble happen. I'm sticking with Gilbert as well. I think he's going to be able to get to a sub because the Gilbert that fought Neil Magny just seems like
he's on
somebody
a
who's
mission.
thinking different.
He's on a
Dude,
mission.
all we got to know is what does his wife tell him tonight? What's the game plan? Like,
Tap him out and come home.
remember, that's what she told him last time. She
Yeah.
was like, no playing around. Get this guy out of there.
We got somebody asking when the fights are. So that's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Main card starts at 10 p.m. Usual. I think the prelims, usually the early prelims start at 6, and then I think like the bigger, like kind of regular prelims start at like 8.
Yeah.
I don't think that's different for this one.
Yeah, something. So around the 6-7 for the prelims and then the
but
main
10.
card.
But I do know 10 for the main card. So 10 p.m. pay per view, ESPN Plus. I do. Before we move on, I also love how Masvidal in his presser was almost trying to handcuff. I guess kind of no pun intended there. Colby Covington with these charges.
Yeah.
He's supposedly allegedly Colby's pressed against Masvidal for allegedly punching him. Although Masvidal said like, dude, I don't wear COVID masks. So what are you talking about? I love it.
He's trolling, man.
His mic skills are just
next level. But Masvidal is claiming apparently that in this like lawsuit, whatever, that Colby is saying that he gave him brain damage, which Masvidal's rebuttal is, if you have brain damage, how can you take a fight?
Yeah, you
take
won't
a
be
title
sanctioned.
fight.
So dude, like he's
they're gonna
almost
sue the company.
yeah. So he's almost like trying to make him pick between like going forward with the legal stuff or taking the like,
Right.
which is just mind games. I mean, it's pretty great.
Well, that and like that's why I think you see, Dana get flustered when people keep on bringing him up because he's the only one who's kind of defending the situation. Everybody else is kind of coming from the different angles.
Well, especially being in Miami. Like, that was, I mean, I give him credit for going up there and saying Colby was still next.
Is Colby going to be in the crowd?
That's a good question.
I think so, man.
So Jorge said he has a restraining order, like can't be within like 100 feet or something, 100 yards. I don't remember. But that's a good question.
Another thing, in the embeddeds, Masvidal went to a Trump situation. I wonder
saw
if
that.
Donald pops in, but
Donnie.
has Colby with him maybe and does his, hey guys, you gotta see the screen cut on it there. But you know how the WWE sets
We will know because remember in London, right? So we're watching the pay-per-view. And all of a sudden, I don't remember what fight it was, but the whole crowd starts booing. And I think you or Brandon was like, man, why is everybody booing? And I was like, probably Colby walked in. I kind of said it jokingly. And then they said on the commentary, like, Colby just walked in. So
that's nuts.
I think I assumed it was like Logan Paul or somebody like that, but then it ended up being him.
Yeah.
Biggest pop of the night.
100%. Yeah. Here we are, boys. It is time. Official. Let's make it official. The main event. The champion, Alex Pereira, weighing in at 185 pounds versus the number 1 ranked and former 6-time champion, Israel Adesanya, who came in at 184.5. Both guys making weight. I will say, I think off top, Pereira looks so much better on the scale. Shout out to the UG for putting up the side-by-side picture there on their Twitter. I thought he looked a lot better on the scale than he did in New York. Yeah, I will say that. But I said in our show this week, I think this is the biggest UFC middleweight title rematch since Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman. And I still feel that way. This thing just feels massive to me as we're sitting here 24 hours, like I said, removed. I just feel like this is like one of those big ones. It's feeling really big. Adesanya said this week that he thinks it's the greatest rivalry in mixed martial arts history. While I don't fully agree with him, I think it is the most unique and probably one that we'll never see again.
Yeah.
Like the stipulations around it are crazy, and I think for that alone, like that's got so many people captivated, right? Like these two guys who this is their 4th time. Obviously, it's well written. And the champ Pereira owns all 3 wins, but in 2 different sports. Like, well, we may never see that again unless it's like amateur wrestlers again.
Backtrack again. This guy didn't even want to do MMA until he hears an interview where Izzy says that he won't come here.
Crazy.
Then he gets in the UFC in 3 fights, gets to the title because of the tie to Izzy.
Yeah.
Wins. Like there's so many levels to this. I had to wait to watch the embeddeds because I didn't want to have the butterflies too soon throughout the week.
And for people that don't know, John is our Izzy stan.
Yeah.
It's self-admitted, admittedly.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's no love lost.
That's
I mean,
my
this
dog.
guy.
I get it, man. No, I get it.
But let me ask you guys this, because heading into this, I feel like as we sit here, the biggest question that's been brought up here on Fight Week is, was this turnaround too fast for Israel Adesanya? Should he have taken more time in between these 2 fights? Because to be fair, even his coach, Eugene Behrman, was critical of Izzy, taking it so fast that he would have preferred him taking a little bit more time. And it's something on our podcast we really didn't, we talked about it, but not too much.
Right.
So we'll start with you, John. What do you think? Too quick?
It's interesting because I also see a world where why give Alex more time to get better at grappling or get better at cutting weight or get better at any part of MMA?
Yeah.
Izzy has so many more fights and so much more experience against higher level people in MMA that he can draw from. Whereas you give Alex more time, maybe he brings in some other people. Like, I think that's the game you're playing of like, okay, I get one more chance at this. Maybe not give him a chance to learn how to, defend the body lock that he got to get to a takedown or get up better or, situations like that. So I do think there's a level of risk and gamemanship to, not giving him a chance to do that and you just trying to make, because he was he lost, but there's an adjustment of, if he survives that 5th round, he wins.
Sure.
So in his head, it's probably like, okay, if I can make a couple of these adjustments and make it through the fight, I have a better chance than giving him, 6 months to start developing other stuff in his game because it's already so good.
Right.
True. I mean, like initially, I thought like, man, it might be a little too soon, but then, Izzy's been kickboxing for years, so the quick turnaround is something I feel like he's used to. And then, as John said, he's got all this experience with the 5-round fights and all that. So maybe he was just like, nah, I want to get back on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to give him a chance to get better, just like John said.
You fought. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, so don't be upset by me talking about this. But when you won your amateur bantamweight champion your belt, the guy that you fought, you guys fought. You rematched him and he beat you, but you guys fought 2 years later maybe? You guys both had a lot of fights in between there. Did you feel like in that time when you were in there that he had gotten better and like maybe benefited from having more fights in between there?
Not really. Like, well, to be honest, like when I'm in there, bro, I don't be thinking about nothing, bro. Like it's weird. Like I didn't think anything like that. Like I was just in there, like I just want to beat this dude up. I just want to win.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think about like what he was doing or what he would have done or how he was trained. I didn't think about none of that. I was just thinking about what I want to do to him and if I can make it happen.
One thing Pereira said this week was he thinks the main reason Izzy turned around so fast, is he just wants to get this over with. Win, lose, draw, whatever. He just wants it done, regardless of the outcome. And he kind of compared it to doing something bad as a kid, and basically you like run home just to get the whoopings over with, which I thought was a hilarious analogy. But I think it's an interesting observation. I mean, it really is. Now, one thing I will say in Adesanya's case is this is probably the best time to do it. And for a lot of the same reasons that John's saying, he's in his fighting prime. Adesanya is, coming off that loss, he was winning. If that fight goes the distance, he probably wins 3-2, if not 4-1 maybe. So it's not like Pereira is so much better, to where a year off for Izzy is really going to improve or, be super beneficial. Now you can argue he could spend that time getting better in the grappling department, but the problem is, like John said, Alexa's going to be getting better that whole time too, right? And Pereira is still green in MMA. Right. So though he is champion and he's pulled it off, and this is a crazy story. He's probably one of one in that. He's what he's done in such a short time, it's incredible. It really is. But why allow him to get better? Because if he's this good with just 8 mixed martial arts fight, imagine when he's like got 10, so if like Izzy sat out for a year, he fights 2 more times, like imagine when he gets 10 under his belt, like how much better he's going to be at mixed martial arts.
Well, and there's another point of this to where Pereira was calling for a shot at the 205 belt.
Yeah.
Glover's talked about him. Oh, he could be a heavyweight. Yeah. So if you wait a year, maybe Pereira's not there, and you have to go up to light heavyweight, and you have a super disadvantage at that point.
Yeah, because we've seen Izzy at 205. I mean, not to make jokes, but I mean, it didn't look great, right, against Jan Blachowicz. So.
We got a couple comments from Cody. He said, "I was loving Izzy before the week had played out. His attitude and his answers to questions, the seriousness, has all led me to now side with Pereira." He says, I think the short time has also allowed Pereira to stay lean. He hasn't had time to blow up and get that championship weight, has been training in Thailand for months. And then he said, if Izzy goes out and does a masterclass point fight like he's done before, and he put in quotes cannoneer, I wouldn't be shocked. Truly a toss-up.
I said that same thing, is like if it really is, but if he does go out and like try, I mean, that's how he has to do it, right? But as soon as Pereira locks him in and gets him cornered on that cage, he's going to be in trouble.
Well, I think it was interesting.
That is a good, I like what he's saying there about the short time in between the fights for Pereira is, because then maybe that's why he looked better on the scale
Right.
too, you know?
I was watching Wonder Boy break down Izzy striking. He does these videos where he breaks down people striking.
Yeah.
And what he talked about being the problem for their fight with Pereira and Izzy was Izzy fights really good long range
Right.
and really good up close, so he can land those hooks,
Sure.
stuff like that. He struggled in the boxing range, and that's where Alex lives.
Yeah.
When he was up against the cage, he was right on the end of those hooks. He wasn't inside where there was elbows, and he wasn't outside where he could kick.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that could definitely need to be looked at.
Yeah. And I think Izzy has been all class in defeat. I mean, you can't, it's impossible not to like Adesanya. I mean, he really is. Like, I know if you listen to our podcast, we love to give John a hard time about Izzy. But he's just a great dude, man. You can't help but like him.
He was a great champion.
Yeah.
Will fight anybody,
Right.
everybody.
And he didn't make any excuses, you know, like we have seen in the past where fighter, and then they kind of lean on those excuses, and then it kind of prevents them from getting better, getting to that next gear. But for Adesanya, I don't think that's going to be the case here. You know, he knows what he has to do. He's put in the work. You know, there's no doubt he'll be the best version of himself. And like last thing I will say before we kind of officially get into our picks for this fight is one thing Izzy was asked this week was kind of like, what's his theme? You know, he always has like a theme for the fight. And his answer, he kind of took a minute to think about it, but he says, I'm the hunter this time. And he said, and I think he kind of got his words like messed up after that, but I believe what he was trying to say is that he's the hunter, but you know, because he's always been the hunted. He's been the hunted for a while now, right? Implying that, you know, everybody's been chasing him. But that quote of being the hunter kind of just made me think that like when Izzy was climbing to that title, right? You know, being the hunter, trying to get to the interim title fight with Kelvin Gastelum, that was the most impressive and fun Izzy that we ever saw. Including the interim fight with Gastelum, and then eventually the undisputed fight with Whitaker. I mean, that was to me, and I say here today, I still feel like those were the best Izzy fights, like the best that he ever looked in that climb, and then those two for me. And there's just no denying that the challenger Izzy was just different. Yeah. He was a dog.
And honestly, I don't know how I feel about him this week because I've never seen this.
It's interesting.
Like short.
And that's kind of where, like, I think too what Cody's saying is like it is kind of like it's hard to get a read on that because like it is very different for him.
And it sounds like, because I felt like with the last fight, you did see a very aggressive Izzy who had opportunities where he was landing big shots.
Right.
First round almost ended it. And I think you're going to have to, like, for him, like you said, he's going to go out on a shield, I feel like. And he's either going to have, probably has to be his best performance because we've seen now that anything short puts him in danger of being, hurt or hit. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that's interesting. For the first time in 8 fights, he's going to be the hunter again. So like, let's see, man, like, cause when he was doing it before, he was a dog. And I'm really interested to see, I'm excited to see it. So
me too,
what are your guys' final picks though? I mean, I don't even have to ask John. I don't have our usual soundboard, but I play the Lonely Heart Boys song for John.
I'm still going Izzy by decision.
Yeah,
I think he's going to drag him late, stay away from him, keep circling. And then as it gets later into the fight, I think as long as he doesn't, cause I feel like when we've seen him lose in the UFC 2 times, the leg kicks weren't working. Blachowicz and Alex. So maybe it's kind of like the GSP thing. You have to start reinventing yourself because these guys have so much tape. They know, Izzy's going to do all his groundwork with leg kicks and then start picking people apart. That didn't work. Yeah. But the right hand still worked.
Right.
And that's what I'm banking on.
Man, I gotta go with the style bender, man. I can't go against my folks, man.
Yeah, I got backup now.
Yeah, you guys are just like anime. Leave me alone.
Got backup now, baby.
Boy, man. I won't be shocked if he doesn't get it done, though.
Sure.
I won't be shocked at all, but I'm pulling for my man. I think I'm going to stick with Pereira. I'm sticking with Pereira. That was my pick on Sunday. We recorded Sunday, but Monday's episode, and I'm sticking with it for the same reasons. I just have a feeling he's going to come out and make a statement, man. I feel like he's going to look to get him out of there. I think if this thing goes past 3 rounds, maybe I change mid-fight my thought there.
Just real quick.
Yeah, no, but I think I just have a feeling he gets it done, and I have a feeling he gets it done in under 4 rounds. I think I took him in the 3rd round. That's kind of where I
think Brandon had him like in the 2nd or something.
He's giving him like no faith.
Yeah.
Real quick too, did you guys see the tweets from Izzy about the USADA stuff?
Yeah, I've seen people talking about it.
Yeah, he kind of just said that like basically USADA should
watch the people
for like 24 hours after the weigh-in. Yeah, and then he was just like, wait, forget it, I'll just hydrate. Kind of going back to the whole Islam
what's the limit?
Stuff.
What can I do?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny, but I mean, there is some. I was kind of thinking about that, and I'm like, it is interesting because the thing about that too is as these fights get bigger, as the stakes get bigger, it's like maybe we should. That's something they should look into, because it would be nice to know that like everything's legit and official. I mean, because
that's true.
Yeah, the stuff with like Volk and Islam, like that whole thing was so weird, and I feel like the way it all.
And we still haven't seen how that's going to turn
well,
out.
Kind of just swept it under the rug.
That's what I was about to say. The way it all ended, but I'm
weird.
like, it hasn't ended.
No,
it's still like it was just kind of odd.
Well, and Izzy's been heavy on the weight cut, and the UFC being on top of that. So
John, I got one final question for us before we wrap this up. But before we move on, as our residential Izzy stan, how many times have you listened to Eminem's "Lose Yourself" or watched 8 Mile this week?
None, actually, but I did watch a crap ton of anime, so
He said none.
I made up for it.
You know you're gonna listen to
Wasn't a big Eminem guy.
Dude, Pereira grew on me, man. Like during like the
Pikachu jacket.
Yeah, like he grew on
That
me,
dude
bro.
just scares me.
Yeah,
Did you see what he said? I had to break all my mirrors because I was scaring myself.
Dude, he scares me.
Pereira.
I have to like close my phone sometimes.
Pull out Todd. Like that sounds like somebody that's gonna do you bad.
Hands of stone, Todd. One final question, boys, for UFC 287, and it's actually courtesy of MMA On Point. They put out a graphic this week, and they asked. I love this question. I thought it was really interesting. If people in the chat want to answer too, I'd love to get some answers. Who has more to lose this weekend at UFC 287 between Israel Adesanya, Jorge Masvidal, or Kevin Gastelum?
That's the most to lose.
See, I'll kind of take, because I'm putting you guys on the spot. I should have told you guys about this before we started, but like here was my thought: is like obviously I'm taking Masvidal out. I mean, this dude, first off, like fighting in Miami, getting the UFC back in Miami after 20 years. I know he wants to win, and it's massive for him. But like, I feel like whatever happens, he still wins in a sense, right? And he's not. I just don't think he's going anywhere. So that kind of left me between Gastelum and Izzy, and I was thinking like, obviously, it's hard not to say Izzy, right? Because you're talking a world title and this whole thing with Pereira and trying to, and if he doesn't win that, it's like, man, he'll never get, like, it's over.
Right.
And that's something he's gonna have to eat and live with for forever, essentially. And it's probably one of those things you hear former fighters, they've always got that one fight that like keeps them up at night, right? But then I think, man, too, with Gastelum, it's like to go 1 in your last 7, right? And then, dude, that's tough.
That's
and then,
rough, man.
Bro, and then on top of that, like, he's one of those guys, like, we don't really know contracts or financially what people get paid or different things like that, but we've seen where and we just, from the UFC kind of saying it, is where guys are on bigger contracts because at one point they had a massive name or buzz and they got a new deal or whatever, and they go on these streaks, and the UFC's like, well, I think Yoel was one, Romero, where it's like your contract's kind of bigger than
I think
what
John Fitch was one too.
Maybe,
like he'd been in there
That
so
sounds
long.
right. Yeah.
He was making money, but I was like, you're not in this
winning,
spot.
man. Like, what do we do with you?
And I still feel like that's why they maybe, Anderson got pushed a little bit earlier, because like he had to be one of the top.
Crazy,
you know
man.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so I do think about it from that standpoint as well, as like, man, and it's crazy to say this out loud, but as a guy like Kelvin Gastelum fighting for his UFC career future, whereas I feel like if, so it's like, which one do you see as more? It's like, is a UFC career bigger than, Izzy and Masvidal are going to be here Monday for show.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But, I just, with Gastelum, it's like, man, that puts a big question mark over
like,
his future, man.
And I think part of for Izzy too, though, is although if he loses this, he can't get it back.
Yeah.
If Pereira relinquishes his title and goes up to 205, Izzy's already beat everybody else under him. So there's a world where he fights, one more time, and then he can get into claiming the vacant.
Yeah, because we didn't even get into that, but I do have a feeling Pereira's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel like he's here. He's not here for a long time. Right. He's just here for a good time, and the good time is Izzy, and that's it.
Cody's saying Masvidal. He says
really?
that he has the greatest risk reward. If he wins, I think you have to put him in a title shot. If he loses, he thinks his time of title contention is over. But Game Bread Sports is also very successful. Yeah. And he said Kelvin's last fight was for $150K to show. So
yeah,
and I mean we've seen people get cut. Tyron Woodley got cut really quickly. We've also seen people like Sam Alvey stay on longer, but he's probably not getting $150K to show
up.
Yeah, I do agree with him. I think if Masvidal loses, there's just that's he's
and if that's part of his shtick and his what he's putting for this brand.
But what about the BMF title?
Yeah.
Because he did bring that back up this week. But I like what he said about it, which is probably the conversations they've had with the UFC, is he was like, I just kind of got to win before I defend it,
Right.
He's like, I got to get some wins, to kind of make it valid, I guess. So I guess even a loss could make the BMF title like kind of obsolete as well.
Right. So It's interesting, man.
So which one officially are you saying?
I'm gonna say Kelvin as well.
Kelvin,
I think that, and it's almost poetic from his last, his first loss on this run was Izzy in a really close fight that, he had to push forward and just came up short, and then now.
Right. What do you think? What do you think, Dino?
Kelvin, bruh.
Yeah.
Kelvin, man.
I'm not gonna answer. How about that?
Oh no, you put Dino on the spot. You got to get on the spot.
I'm not gonna answer. Yeah, it's tough, man. Like I said, it'd be really tough for Kelvin to lose here.
Yeah.
It's hard not to think.
Cody
that.
said Jorge and Connor with the eyes emoji.
Yeah, I mean that's sell. And then you can put the BMF title. They don't need to win any fights.
Right.
Connor can lose to Chandler. Is the Chandler fight even happening? Like where?
I don't know. As far as we know, Connor isn't in the pool yet.
Right. So like I'm saying, like
saving it for New Year's.
Does he technically have to fight Chandler yet? Like to my knowledge, nothing's official.
Cody says, "Wow, what if Jorge wins? Says forget the belt. I want Connor for the BMF belt." Connor responds on Twitter, and they bump Chandler.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, is anybody saying no to that?
No. Chandler's gonna be devastated.
I don't know though.
I just went through a whole season to set this up to get this big red painty night, and then
still good for him. And then he can go the rest of his career and say Connor ducked him.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
That might be as good as a win. That's gonna be it for us. Man, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
cannot honestly thank everybody enough for checking us out here on the MMA Underground.
Appreciate everybody who commented in the chat.
Absolutely,
factuals.
Yes,
factuals.
Make sure you check out our podcast. Like I said, right below Neon Belly Podcast. And as I said, we drop new episodes every Monday. Apple, Spotify, all the streaming podcasts at Neon Belly Podcast on all our socials. And like I said, as we wrap up this first episode of the Kickback Show right here on the MMA Underground platform, the goal is to do this for right now just on pay-per-view Friday nights before pay-per-view. So UFC 288, I think we're almost exactly a month out from that. Is it March 5th? Is that right?
Something along the lines of that.
Why does that sound right? I think it is. But we'll be back.
All right.
So we will be back for episode 2 of the Kickback Show right here on the MMA Underground. So make sure, like I said, you subscribe to the UG right here on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Also click that bell for notifications so you can know about all the new content when it drops, and you'll be notified when we go live next.
Yeah. A quick fun fact for the name Kickback. His first strike in a fight was a jump kick that went over somebody's head.
Dude shows up to an amateur fight. We have no idea what's going to happen, right? Like, our best friend's getting in a fight. We're like, what's about to happen? Dude just comes,
jumps as high as he can and throws like a roundhouse that goes like 10 feet over this guy's head, but it probably scared him.
Bro, that whole day was a mess.
Crazy.
Like,
you came from out of town.
Yeah, I had to come from my grandma's funeral, and then I lost my mouthpiece, so they had to find someone and then put a whole bunch of like soap on it. Like, I was like, bro, I gotta beat up somebody with somebody else's mouthpiece in, bro.
And thanks for being here today. Our, like I said, very own Dino Swoke.
No doubt, man.
And if you do watch anime, you are into anime, check out his Eat the Cake anime.
Eat the Cake.
Show it on the hoodie there on Facebook. They do skits,
breakdowns, and all types of stuff. So.
I am not
a bunch of nerdy stuff, man.
I'm not
anti-Nate stuff.
Yeah,
bunch of Izzy stuff.
But John loves it.
Nate is not the anime. How about for the next show? I don't want to make it official. Maybe we open an H2 box of panini. Some UFC.
I would definitely be.
Maybe we break some wax next box. Maybe we'll talk about it. We might kick that around.
Yeah.
But again, thank you to the MMA Underground. As I said it a million times. Shout out to Cody Merrow, who's been in the chat.
He said, "Great show, boys."
Appreciate
it, man.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Cody is the mixed martial arts podcast producing GOAT. Absolutely hands down. And shout out to John Morgan as well, the chief and editor for mixedmartialarts.com, giving us this opportunity, boys. Can't thank you guys enough. And again, enjoy UFC 287. We'll see you guys again soon.